Rain, singing nursery rhymes because we are doing all that we can from the studio to hope that it doesn't rain and we get a game, because the two games in Florida have been washed out. So India take on Canada today, and cricket fans are just hoping that we get a cricket game. No one's going to get eliminated today like yesterday when Pakistan got eliminated, but all rain, no play makes Zach a dull boy, doesn't it? Welcome, Zach, and welcome, Michael. Good to have you all both in the studio. My first English show with you, so this is something new that's happening today, so it's good to have you here.
Well, I hope the game gets on. That's something which everyone is waiting for. Good thing about the game is that there's no pressure. I was just curious that whether the Indian team is actually going to opt for some changes. Maybe Kuldeep comes back in. Is there any reshuffle in the batting order? Those kind of things, because it's more on the lines of fine tuning to the next phase of this tournament.
Yes.
And how Indian team is thinking at this stage.
It is dead rubber on paper, Michael, but like Zach was saying, just to see will they change things around, just for the ones who are not really in great form to come back in form, because it's a relaxed game, which is why most Indian fans want this game.
Yeah, I'm sure Kuldeep will get a game. Although whether the conditions are going to allow for another spinner, we'll have to wait and see. But I do think it's right. If Kuldeep's going to be playing once they get to the Caribbean, it's right to get him a game or two. It looks very wet. I'm quite good at studying body language of the umpires these days, and the umpires that were out there stamping on the outfield showed the same kind of body language as they did yesterday, when obviously we didn't get any cricket and the rain came later on. But India will want to get an outing, like so Virat could do with a bit of time in the middle, Rohit could do with a few runs. Suryakumar's been in good form, he would like to continue with that form. So because it's quite a long tournament, I was saying yesterday, because they're not playing that many games, I think every game that comes, a player would want to get out there and just continue with the motion of getting the body playing cricket. So I would think India will want to at least, if it gets down to a 10 over a game or a 5 over game, I don't think either team will be too bothered. But if you're playing a 15, 20 over game, I think both teams will be desperate to get out there.
I'm feeling that deja vu, Michael. It feels like you were sitting right there, I was sitting right here, and I've been given the update that there is going to be a pitch inspection at 8 p.m. So it's clearly a delayed start. Zach, you know so much about the technicalities of a pitch, the outfield. It wasn't raining. DK, our weatherman, told us that it was very, very wet, the outfield, and clearly the drainage system is not the best in Florida.
Well, if it's not the best drainage system, then we'll have to wait and see how Indian team is thinking about. You've got to take the cautious approach as well. You don't want any of the injuries due to conditions. And it's a pity that in New York also the conditions were not allowing the batters to have their shot making freely. And here now the wet outfield is not allow them to go out and maybe play the game freely. You'll have to be a little cautious if you're fielding in the outfield. So that's one concern. But I think they will look at it that way. Maybe a shortened game is something which we are expecting. But even if there is no game, it's not going to affect Indian team that much.
They'd prefer it, wouldn't they?
Yeah, I mean, if either you play in good conditions, fine-tune whatever aspects which you've been wanting to fine-tune, which is particularly with batting at this stage, because the flow of the bat in the match situation is something which I think all the batters will be expecting. It was restricted in New York, so I think batters will be looking forward to that. Due to conditions, there might be some seam movement as well, so we'll have to wait and see how the pitch also plays.
But Michael, the New York leg, very substandard pitches, not the advertisement that T20 cricket wanted in America, and now they move to Florida and it's raining. This is not what you want in a World Cup, right? Because the fans are so excited. We want games to happen, and then it's just not the most ideal situation.
Yeah, New York, there wasn't many home runs, was there? That's what they were after a few home runs. But you can't do much about the weather. The weather comes in, and that's always disappointing. I guess, looking at New York and the drop-in pitch, maybe they could have done something different to the drop-in pitch. I know the guys from the Adelaide Oval in Australia had prepared those pitches, had prepared the outfield, and maybe they'll look at what they did and change if they go back to New York in the future. But it's just frustrating for the players and for the supporters, particularly supporters in America. They don't get to see too much cricket. And when the Indian side in particular arrive with all that huge amount of support. They desperately want to see a bit of cricket. So hopefully the weather change. It looks to me like they're going to need some sunshine. Again, my body language tells me that when the umpires were walking around the outfield, the one shot that I did get from the television that the umpires were walking around, there was a little bit of water coming up from the shoes. So it suggests that it might need a bit of sunshine, and I'm not too sure whether they're going to get that.
Also, Zach, being a fast bowler, when you see that kind of an outfield, even if there is some time, even if it becomes a shorter game, as a fast bowler, Jasprit Bumrah, who's a national treasure now, you wouldn't want him to go out on that outfield. If you were in that camp right now, would you have wanted to go and play in the outfield, which is so wet?
I think generally what will be happening in the Indian camp, if you have to just kind of do the guesswork, usually you ask all the players to be switched on.
Yes.
A tendency is that, okay, there might not be any game, the drainage is bad, and suddenly umpires say, okay, the inspection was decent enough, and you're starting in an hour, and that, or maybe sometimes in 20 minutes. So whether you are ready for that, you got to find that balance. So I think in the Indian camp at this stage, Rahul Dravid will be telling everyone, to the whole group, it's okay. It doesn't look like the game is going to start soon, but that doesn't mean that you go completely off your processes. It's just about reminding that the warm-up is going to be crucial, the taping to everything, all the aspects. You make sure that you tick all the boxes and not get too carried away with what's happening around. We've seen from those visuals that everyone is having a good laugh, everyone is in a relaxed mode. You got to be able to switch on when it matters.
You spoke about them ticking all the boxes. I feel with the 3 games in New York, India managed to tick all the boxes, even though, like I said, the pitches were substandard. It's been 3 games on the trot that India have won and qualified. Pretty much the bowlers were enjoying the conditions there with the batters. We saw Rohit against Ireland, we saw Rishabh Pant, then we saw Shivam Dube and Surya come to the party. So overall, India will be happy that, there's someone who put their hand up each time. But for all Indian fans, Michael, I'll go to you first. There's that one big name as Indian fans you want just to see what he does. So Virat Kohli, the first 3 games has not been the Virat Kohli we are so used to seeing, the run machine.
Yeah, he's on the back of an incredible IPL. I think what we're finding in this World Cup that, a lot of these players have played in the IPL where scores were 200 plus and the pitches were flat, the boundaries, obviously, sizes were quite small. The boundaries were coming pretty much at will for all these players. They've now gone to a World Cup where the pitches are just doing a little bit more. I think the strike rates of 180 plus that we've been seeing and these players have got so used to, I think they've almost now got to assess the conditions and realise that a 160 score is looking like it's going to be very competitive. I think we all thought with this World Cup that this T20 juggernaut had just moved on. The players had gone to a different level. I think the impact sub also played a big part in the IPL. There's no impact sub in the World Cup, and I think the pitches are doing a little bit more. So it's bringing that old Virat style player. Virat of the old, where he used to just bat and play and strike at 130. I would say that style of player is going to be invaluable if the pitches are going to continue to do things. If we suddenly go to the Caribbean and the pitches are flatter and 220 becomes the kind of par score, of course you're going to have to strike it at 180. But if the pitches continue to do what they're doing, as we've seen in the last 2 weeks, Virat Kohli just batting and just playing. He's got out 3 times just outside off stump. That's the nature of T20 cricket. You've got to go for your shots, but that's where everyone's going to bowl, about 4th or 5th stump, outside off stump, into length, and get him driving through the offside. That's pretty much, he'll know that. But I just think in his mindset, because he's come on the back of the IPL and he's been such an aggressor at the top of the order, he's probably carrying on with that. Where it might be worth someone in the Indian camp just saying to him, just play like you used to play, because if you can be the glue, and if the scores are going to be 150, 160 and Virat is the glue, India will always get to that kind of number. I'm looking last night, the New Zealand team bowled out Uganda for 40. You look at Nepal versus South Africa. Nepal nearly beat South Africa. Yes. South Africa only just got over 110. So, I don't think there's any of the top 10. I think probably Australia look like they're in good touch. They look like they're playing good cricket. I think of all the other teams, I don't think anyone's playing great. And maybe it is because of the surfaces. We'll have to wait and see. But Virat has to work out what is right on a given day. And I think India, if I was in the Indian camp, I'd be whispering in Virat's ear, just go back in the gears a little bit, because if you can bat 15 overs and a Suryakumar, a Rohit, a Rishabh, just bats around you, India are always going to get a very, very competitive score.
You know, Zach, you've known him for a long time. He didn't play a lot of international cricket before the IPL. He had that break. Then he came back into IPL. He put on that button that he has, second best IPL that he had. We see the numbers. And after the IPL, again, the break was very little, if one can say. But do you think it's just the conditions that he's not adapted to in the last 3 games, or it's not fair to say that?
I wouldn't look too much into it.
Yeah.
I think, the conditions also had a fair bit to play in this whole thing. Indian team may be wanting to go ahead and make use of the power play, which we've seen with the scores also. Rohit was also willing to take those options, the aggressive options in the power play, and so was Virat. Both these players are very experienced. I think what matters and what we've seen over the years, big players, they have this mindset that when it matters,
yes,
they make it count. So that's the way you have to look at it. The important phase of the tournament coming now. Yes, today, if he gets an outing, gets all those things moving, and a different surface is something which all the batters, I think, will be looking at. Virat is no exception to that. Moving away from New York is something which we have to wait and see. And if it continues, then maybe you can raise a bit of a concern. At this stage, no one will be looking too much into it, because the scores which we've seen, 120, 130 was a competitive, if not winning totals, which we've seen in that venue. So you have to figure out a way as a team to achieve what you want to achieve, which you've seen. 3 wins is something which you're expecting. Indian team has got that. They found a way of making sure that they collect these points and get that queue ahead of their name, which they've got it. Now it's about making sure when you move away from this and get into the next phase, to again follow the processes and make sure that you start well. Yes, you've not started the tournament as well as you would have liked, but every game is an opportunity.
That's what this game would have been, that perfect opportunity for Virat, because there's no pressure. Like, fans would have just wanted him to come in, like Michael's saying, take it easy, get some runs under his belt for the World Cup. But from one opener to the other, Rohit has had a mixed World Cup in these 3 games as well. The first one, of course, the 50 that he got against Ireland. Very tough conditions. We saw him getting hit on the shoulder, getting hit a few times because it was the pitch doing things. But he still stuck it out. And then 13 and 3. With Rohit, he had a mixed IPL as well, so fans would want Rohit to come to the party as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's an aggressor. It's very clear that he's obviously aggressive himself, but he wants his team to play aggressive cricket. We saw that in the 50-over World Cup. He got the Indian side playing a very modern white ball game, which was great to see. I think Rohit, you can pinpoint his batting, but I think he brings so much more than just his batting. I think his leadership of this group is exceptional. I think he clearly has a group of players that really get behind him. They enjoy playing under him. The move to put Rishabh to number 3, I'm not too sure who decided upon that, but it's very much like a Rohit Sharma move. I think if you're going to go, even if the pitches are a little bit spicy, I still think you need one player that's going to be ultra aggressive going out to open the batting, and I think Rohit has to be that player. Virat, I wouldn't mind Virat playing the old Virat. If I was India, I'd just play the Virat way, and the likes of Rohit should be ultra aggressive. Rishabh, if he goes out there, he'd be ultra aggressive. Because the first 6 overs, whether the pitch is doing something, it's still the best time to score, because there's only 2 fielders outside the circle. So you've still got to maximise those first 6 overs. His record's not great in T20 World Cup. I think he's 150 in the last 4 tournaments against the top teams, and that's the likes of England, Australia, South Africa and co, which surprised me because he's such a good player. But I would say he's probably had quite a few 30s and 40s that have impacted the game, because he's come out of the traps and scored so quickly. So sometimes in T20s, a good 25 off 10 balls can make a massive difference. I think when you're looking at 50-over cricket and Test match cricket, 50s and 100s, 5-wicket hauls are very important. But in T20 cricket, you can make a big impact by scoring 30 quick runs. And I would say Rohit's probably done that quite often, but he's not got the 50s.
Michael said that he needs one of the openers to be ultra aggressive. We also spoke about this yesterday, Michael. We said there's a Yashasvi Jaiswal sitting outside who is that ultra aggressive player. Zach, would have still gone ahead with a Rohit Virat, or would you have liked to see Yashasvi and one of them come down?
Well, I think Rohit and Virat, looking at the squad, was the right move. and that's how Pant came into batting at number 3. So you still want to maintain that left-right. Yes, Yashasvi would have given you that advantage of having left-right as a opening combination, and then you figure out your left-right combinations later. But when this World Cup squad was selected, I think it was very evident that maybe Yashasvi is going to miss out. Rohit and Virat will start, and Rohit is going to be that aggressor in that opening pair. That is also very evident. We have to just see now how it evolves, because whatever matches we've seen so far in New York as well, Rohit was willing to take the aggressive route up front as early as possible. So he wants to continue with that. In the process, you might see the numbers anyways in T20 format. I think 30s, a quick fire 30s is something which you should look at rather than looking at 50s and 100s. Because collectively, you got to play the phases. I think power play is such a crucial phase in this format that you got to make sure that that you get 50, 55. That kind of approach is something which you should expect. As India lost early wicket, we've seen Rishabh Pant taking charge. So that seems to be the plan in that batting order. That seems to be the discussion from outside when you're looking at how they're approaching, and it will continue right throughout the tournament.
Michael, you spoke about the 50s that he hasn't gotten against the top opponents. But with Rohit, he's spoken about how even in the 23 World Cup, he said that he wants to be the aggressor. We've seen like a Rohit 2.0. So can we expect that Rohit to come back now that we go to more batter-friendly pitches?
Well, if you just get by those numbers back on the screen, for India to win the World Cup, you'd say that Rohit's got to improve his numbers against the better teams, because from now on in, after today against Canada, they go to the Super 8s and they're up against the top teams. And you look at that average there and the strike rate, 110 averaging at 20, that's not Rohit Sharma that we know. Rohit's a better player than that. And for India to lift the trophy in a couple of weeks' time, you would say that those averages on the left have to be a lot higher, and the strike rate's going to have to be high, because he's such a key player. And he's such a key... And I'll also say from, obviously from an England perspective, one of the players that they fear in the world is Rohit Sharma. They won't look at those numbers. They probably don't even know those numbers. They're like, those numbers have surprised me, but I know that Rohit is one of those players that all the rest of the world, when it gets to the kind of Super 8s, the semis, the final, they all fear Rohit Sharma, because they know he's got this exceptional talent of hitting a white ball, hitting a red ball, but more so a white ball, and he can have a day out. And even though those numbers aren't great, you get into a quarter-final and a semi-final, and as an opposing side, you'd be like, oh, it's Rohit Sharma.
Yes.
Oh, no, it's Rohit. Anything's possible. So he has to find his form, he has to find his rhythm, but I never generally worry about Rohit Sharma. I don't know why. I always think he'll be fine. He's one of those kind of players that even if he gets 15, it looks a good 15.
Yes.
It's a nice 15. He's a player that I never watch and think, oh, he's completely out of form. He gets out, but he never
looks good while getting out as well.
He's cool, isn't he? I like Zach, cool players.
He's cool, but Zach, you've known him for so many years. Do you think he even bothers with these numbers, or he's somebody who we know he's very forgetful? Do you think he forgets these numbers entirely when he goes onto a cricket field?
He doesn't like getting out. I mean, that's one thing I can assure you. And he wants to win games of cricket. And so when you're having that kind of approach, you will always be expecting a lot out of you. And I think right now, being aggressive opening pair is something which he's expecting. He's identified that, and from 50 over World Cup, you've been looking at it. What he's been trying to achieve as a leader is to build that philosophy within the team, that together trophies is something which you remember as you move on from the game. And that is something which is very important. Individual milestones is all there for your own satisfaction, but as a team, you can achieve a lot. And I think that's something which we've been noticing looking at this Indian team. And he's carrying that responsibility. So he wants to lead from the front when it comes to that. And he's giving importance to the phases rather than saying, okay, the individual number, say 50 or 100, which he's looking at, or was his aggregate in a particular tournament. It has been the same with IPL as well. We've seen in the last 4-5 years, what he has to show is the trophies which he has won.
Yes.
He doesn't have those numbers to show that, okay, I was the orange cap holder in this particular season. And that's the approach he's been having. So in the process, at times, you are not giving enough importance or enough time in your game preparation. Because you're thinking about the team, you're thinking about which bowler to be used in which situation, how do I be tactically ahead of the opposition.
Yes.
All those kind of factors taking too much of your mind space rather than setting these individual milestones of saying, okay, I want to be the highest run getter, or I want to bat with this particular strike rate. That is something which has taken its toll in the last 5 years when I'm looking at Rohit. But as a team, he's been able to contribute.
Yes.
As a leader, he's been able to be contributing. He's been able to cultivate that culture where the trust is something which has been very evident. The players are trusting him. The support staff is trusting him. Everyone pulling in one direction is something which you can expect when Rohit is around.
The one thing I'll say about Rohit, he's such a good player of spin.
Yes.
And he can hit spin. I think we're all expecting in the next 2 weeks spin to play a bigger part. I think it's going to come more and more into the equation. It's not going to be like New York. It's going to be games of cricket where there's going to be plenty of spin. It's going to be spinning. So you're going to need really good players of spin. And I would say to Rohit, all right, the first 6 are important. You've got to maximise it. But we could do with having you there at 10 overs.
Absolutely.
Having that 10, because when those real quality spinners come in, if you're still in there, well, you might just give us a 3-over burst of hitting spin, and you might hit their better spinner out the attack. So there's no point in risking everything in the first 6 to then not have Rohit Sharma playing against, let's say Adil Rashid playing against England. Adil Rashid's England's trump card. He's the number 1 spinner in T20 cricket in the world. You want Rohit Sharma, and he generally doesn't bowl in the power play. He stays clear of the power play, and he comes on in the 7th over. If you watch England, Adil Rashid bowls the 7th over more often than not. And if I was India, I'd want Rohit Sharma in that 7th over, because if Rohit could hit an Adil Rashid in the 7th over for 15, or if he's still there in the 9th over and he bowls his second, hit him for 15 in that, it completely derails what England are trying to do with Adam Rashid. They generally like to bowl him around up till about the 18th over. He doesn't bowl many of the last 2 over, but he does bowl up to the 18th over. But if you can whack him from that 7th over, then you start saying to someone like Jasprit, where are you going to find his overs? So I do think sometimes that these players get set in the ways of being really aggressive, but I agree with it now to get on flat wickets, but when the pitches are obviously going to spin a lot more, I'd want a Rohit Sharma playing against a better spinner in those middle overs as well.
All right, for all Indian fans, we want both Rohit and Virat to give us the many runs that they give us. The update from our weatherman DK is that there are many wet spots. We are seeing 4 dryers trying to dry the ground out. It's not raining, but the outfield is still very wet. And at 8 p.m, we will have an inspection. And talking about 8 and the Super 8s, Michael, you spoke about moving to the Caribbean. We actually have a question on Ask CB. Let's have a look at what Nilesh Anand asks us. Won't say undue advantage owing to fixtures, but do teams who have played their group games in West Indies start with an upper hand in the Super 8 stage?
You could say so, yeah. I mean, I would say the West Indies have an upper hand because they're at home and they know the conditions and they're a good cricket team. But I think most of these players and teams, because they play so much cricket around the world, they play on every surface. They don't or shouldn't get surprised by a spinning wicket. They all play on spinning wickets. They shouldn't get surprised if a ball bounces or swings just for a few overs. It purely just comes down to which team gets their combinations right, which team gets their better players playing to the standard that you would expect. And I always say in World Cups fielding, which teams field well. Because they're all so close. They've all got loads of power. They've all got loads of different kind of variations with the ball. It comes down to fielding sometimes. And a real quality fielding display might just be a 15-run sway, a flying catch, a run out, diving stops on the boundary, getting close in for a new batter, just squeezing the odd single. I don't think the fielding standard's been that high. That's one of the surprises of this era of the game is that with the amount of kind of training, the fitness, the agility of all these players, I still see, I'm no one to talk about catching the ball because I was useless, but I do see a lot of balls go down. There's a lot of drop catches. Maybe the ball's going in the air more often, so there's more catches to be taken, so there's more chances, and the percentage chances that there's going to be more drop. But I do think, and that's where I think Australia stand out. I think of all the teams, their fielding side is exceptional. Every time the ball goes up in the air, you basically shut your eyes because you know it's going to be taken. Whereas most other teams, there's quite a lot of balls that are being dropped, which could be the difference at the end.
But Zach, do you think this is an advantage? Like, would you like to settle in before you get and start playing the Super 8s on a pitch, on a ground that you're more familiar with?
No, I think at the end of the day, it's about how you're adapting, how you're preparing, and what kind of tactics you're going to be applying. You know, that is something which is going to be very, very vital and important in a tournament like World Cup. We've seen over the years, you know, people. It's not that always the home team is going to go on to win the World Cup.
Yes.
So you have a lot going on. It depends on the form. It depends on various things coming together. So slight bit of advantage that yes, teams have played, they've got exposure to those conditions, but you can make that out with the help of data as well. And these days you have all
lots of data.
the huge support staff working on that. Okay, what are the numbers in Barbados? What is the number in Antigua? You know, what kind of historical data you can collect? What kind of tactics have worked? So end of the day, it's about how thorough you are in terms of preparation and how you are bringing everything together on the day when it matters the most.
All right, we've spoken about the pitch a lot. We spoke about how in New York, the seamers clearly had the upper hand. They were more dominant. But there's been a silent spin killer doing his things very silently, and that's Axar Patel, which is why we want to talk about him on our Naukri career score today, because he's just a little not spoken about a lot. He's very under the radar, does his thing quietly, which is why we're going to talk about him today on our Naukri career score. Naukri.com, India's #1 job portal, knows all about growing careers, and they've used this expertise and come up with an interesting way of looking at cricket careers. So Zach, talking about Axar, we've seen how he's been doing very well so far in the last 3 games, and how good is it to see him up there as a top-rank Indian spinner?
Well, everyone needs to be congratulated that, when the World Cup squad was announced, they made sure that tactical advantage with having Axar in the team, because Jadeja was someone who everyone were expecting. Yes. Ravindra Jadeja is going to be that preferred choice, how Axar is going to fit in the squad. But they managed to fit him in the squad with the thought process of, if required, and which we've seen in New York, the kind of pitch was on offer. They opted for Axar because they could use him as a floater as well in the batting order, and he played his role very nicely in that particular game, where he scored 18 or 20 runs, missing in the big 50-over World Cup, and taking that into his strides, then carrying on with the same motivation and waiting for his opportunity is something which needs to be appreciated when you're looking at Axar. It's always going to be, he's always going to be in the shadows of Ravindra Jadeja, isn't it? Like, he's the senior guy, been around, has been fantastic, doing consistently well. So even if you are doing well, to be able to play with Ravindra Jadeja being in the playing 11 is something is going to take a lot of work. Yes. And if he's able to do that, that means he is that special talent. He's doing things consistently well. For him to be playing with Ravindra Jadeja in the side, so that is something which is a very standout factor when I'm looking at Axar. And he's been part of this T20 World Cup is something which was special because it doesn't happen often, isn't it? That you were part of 50-over World Cup, got injured, and then not being part of it, and now almost missing out on this World Cup, but getting an opportunity and playing a role. And
doing so well. You spoke about how he's doing it so consistently. Michael, we've seen that India's used so many spinners. They've used Kuldeep, they've used Jadeja, they've used Ravi Bishnoi in that cycle. But it's so good to see Axar Patel, like Zach said, under the shadows of a Ravindra Jadeja, but doing so well because he keeps getting those wickets and he keeps bowling that correct line and length, which is just so economical, so stump to stump. So if we break down those numbers and we have a look at our Naukri career score, in the last 2 years, we see him topping that charts when it comes to longevity and situational performance. So it's just that we know he gets those wickets in those pressure situations.
Yeah, I mean, all those kind of numbers are when it matters, situational performance, when the game's hot. He's performing better than anybody. The win contribution is high as well. Second in that list, consistency second. So I think height plays a big part. I think, you look at someone like Mitchell Santner as well, good left-arm spinner, height. Axar's got that ability to spin it, but he's also got that ability to bowl that straight on. He's had a couple of LBWs in this World Cup where the ball's just kind of skidded on. And if you actually look at the revolutions, there's a lot of revolutions on the ball, but it's actually undercutting the ball. So when it misses, it kind of just skims on. Whereas as a batter, you're seeing the ball spinning like this. You're expecting it as a right-hander to spin away, and it actually, you take your eye with it.
Yes.
So you're expecting the ball to spin away from you. So you kind of get into a position to expect the ball to come this way, and it just goes straight on. And he's trapped a couple, in front of the stumps. He's got all the experience. I mean, he's been a mainstay now for the last 4 years in T20 cricket for India. He's just kind of been the consistent bowler. We've not even really spoken about his batting. He's an all-round player. He's got all-round quality, but I like spinners that can bowl in all facets of the game. I think you could give Axar the first over of the game. You could potentially bowl him in the last two if it was ragging square. And I think that's probably why Rohit and India like him. As a captain, you want bowlers that can bowl in all the different situations in the 20 overs, and he's certainly one of those bowlers.
Well, he has bowled that 1 over against Ireland, then he bowled those 2 overs against Pakistan and 3 overs against USA. He has not bowled his full quota, but he still picked up a wicket in every over that he's bowled. So for all Indian fans, we hope that he keeps going up on those Naukri career score numbers and keeps picking up more wickets, because he does it so quietly, stays under the radar, but gets the job done. And that's why Axar Patel was our topic of discussion on the Naukri career score today. And Zach, Michael, again, the update is wet outfield, but this probably could be the last time we're seeing Canada. How have you all made this campaign of them so far? You're impressed with how they've been. They have shown us, especially against America, they've beaten Ireland, that they are a team to reckon with.
Well, look, I think in this format, anyone can beat anybody. Today's game, when you see South Africa playing Nepal, Netherlands, okay, we are used to seeing that now, Netherlands beating South Africa. But this time, Nepal also came close. Canada beating Ireland. Ireland is also a regular fixture, a regular team which features in all these kind of tournaments. This is the only way you can make your mark. Every opportunity you get here, the exposure at this level, and there is a lot to learn from. That's how you have to look at this. So the campaign was good against USA as well. They scored 190 plus.
Yes.
So they have all the players also to be able to be prepared now next time when they come here. It's a journey. I think there are a lot of teams which are on the journey of making their mark at this level. And Canada, you will see them around for a while for sure.
Michael, their captain Saad bin Zafar spoke about how they don't get very intimidated by the big players because they're here to play professional cricket. And I think that was something which really stood out for me is, you watch these big players on television since you're young, then you rub shoulders with them and you hold your own. That's what Canada has done. Yeah,
I mean, certainly they've not disgraced themselves at all. They've competed in every game. They'll be desperate to, wanting to go and play out against India. I think when you get drawn in a group stage with India, it's such a great opportunity for these players just to go and do something special. That anything that you do against India, transcends around the world a little bit more than any other team. There's more eyeballs on the game, so they'll be desperately hoping that they can get some cricket today. They've got some good players. I mean, I guess the problem for Canada will they get the amount of money to back them like the United States have got? United States, as Joy was mentioning yesterday, have got $1 billion to kind of get their cricket operations up and running. It's already had a great start. The MLC is a good cricket league. It's growing all the time. I know Canada have got their league as well, but it generally comes down to a bit of money and infrastructure of training facilities, coaching, trying to get those younger players coming through the system. But they need good coaching and they need good facilities. It's just whether Canada will have those facilities to bring through a new set of players. But I think they've done well. I think of all the, you look at all the minnow teams, the associate nation teams. I don't think many have really disgraced themselves. I think they've all competed at times against some of the better teams, but I think they'll win against Ireland. They'll be disappointed they lost against the United States. To get 194 and the United States chased it down quite easily in the end. They'll be disappointed with that, but to beat an Irish side that have been pretty much a mainstay of all World Cups for quite a while now is a great achievement for the Canadian side.
All right, let's now quickly have a look at what's happening in the groups. Group A, we've already seen India and USA are through. Let's have a look at Group B and see what's happening on the points table with Group B. There's a queue next to Australia. But Michael, what's happening there with your country?
Well, they're playing Namibia tonight, later on. I'm pretty sure if England win that game, and I'll be dreadfully disappointed if they don't beat Namibia. Scotland then have to beat Australia in the last game. Scotland are playing good cricket, but I can't imagine that Australia will lose to Scotland. So you would think if England beat Namibia tonight, they should be through to the Super 8s.
Well, they had a close call when that game got washed out, Zach. So we were talking about it yesterday where it could have gone either way, but luckily for them it rained and they got... I mean, you don't know which way it could have gone.
Yeah, I mean, what's going nicely for England right now is they don't have to worry too much about the net run rate. You know, the net run rate is already better than Scotland. So that is something which is going to take that pressure off. You know, it's just about going out there and winning the game of cricket. And if you are in that kind of scenario...
I don't think there's any rain in Antigua.
I hope not.
No, hopefully not. Yes,
That's
not what you want. Well, let's have a look at Group C and have a look at what's happened on their points table. The big one there is New Zealand have been knocked out. Afghanistan and West Indies are in. And Afghanistan at number 1 with that net run rate. But Zach, big one there that New Zealand's out. We kind of spoke about it yesterday where Michael said it's concerning the future of New Zealand cricket considering the younger generation is not stepping up and they need to move things around a little bit there.
That group was looking like a stronger group, isn't it? Because Afghanistan also, these kind of conditions, they'll always, they'll thrive on these kind of conditions. Spin coming into play, you can't take them lightly. Cricbuzz is in good form. And West Indies also, in this format, they're also doing good things, you know, playing in home conditions. The motivation is there. They've been trying to make that effort of stabilizing things in that camp, you know, which has been a concern for last few years. So those things going their way. New Zealand was always going to find it challenging that way. One game you lose, suddenly the pressure is on, and then you have a very slight chance of recovery, especially when you're looking at that whole group, you know, when you have 3 teams fighting for those 2 spots. And I think that's what happened in that group. So Afghanistan, great thing for them, Super 8s, another opportunity. We've seen one upset in India's group right now with Pakistan not going through. Here is another opportunity for Afghanistan to make it count. We've seen in the 50 overs, they came so close.
Yes.
You know, they've been playing good cricket, came so close to beating Australia. That game was a very heartbreaking game for them, in spite of doing so well, finishing on the losing side. Here is definitely another opportunity for them to make their mark.
Well, the Afghanistan story is just such a nice story, Michael, because we've seen they look like such a happy group together, and I think that translates when they go out on the field.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously have got a good culture. They've obviously got a good set of players. They've got world-class players as well. I mean, you don't deliver what Afghanistan are delivering without having quality players. They've got some, you know, I think Rashid Khan would get into any team in the world. So he's probably the number 1 pick in T20 cricket. He's that good. And then Zach just mentioned Cricbuzz is just on the back of obviously winning the IPL with KKR. Came in at the end, but he was a pivotal figure towards the back end for them. President Nabi is just... keeps rolling himself out. He's always there or that. Bowls a bit of off spin. He bats well. Fields okay. You know, they've got some wonderful players, but you know, culturally, I think it was Jonathan Trott the other day. You know, the stories of some of these players. You know, Jonathan's obviously coaching the team, and some of the stories of where they've come from to see them playing at this level and on the world stage. It's no doubt that they have that fighting spirit.
Yes.
You know, they're really kind of together in a group, but they've got that inner strength. You know, that inner person that chats to you when you're a sports person, that gets you up out of bed every day and says, "Come on, we'll keep going." Even if you had a bad day or you've not had a great game yourself, you have that little gremlin inside that just chats to you, and they've got the right mentality. They desperately want to get up every day and get better. You wouldn't want to play them. You know, I think they're one of those teams, particularly on wickets in the Caribbean with the spin and the slow nature of the surfaces. You know, I remember after the 50-over World Cup, you know, I think it might have been Rashid Khan or one of the Afghanistan players said, "Look, get ready for us in the T20. We're better at T20 cricket than we are at 50-over cricket. So don't be surprised if we do something in the T20 World Cup." And so far, they haven't disappointed. And as I said, could they go all the way? They might. You know, I just go back to '96 when Sri Lanka won That 50-over World Cup, no one gave Sri Lanka a chance. And if you look at Afghanistan, I think of everything that you require to be an outstanding T20 team, they have that. But whether they can cope with the pressure and the kind of expectation now, because we all expect Afghanistan to play well, we'll have to wait and see. But they're a quality team.
Well, cricket is a funny game. We never know who throws what surprises. Let's have a look at quickly at Group D and see what's happening in their points table. It's still open there. South Africa have qualified, but the group still stands open, Zach.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting one now. What happens with Bangladesh? Bangladesh is going to play the last game against? Not sure.
Yeah, not sure who they play last.
But Netherlands and them,
yes,
they have an open spot there.
So I think this is the only group which, well, with England, we hope that they beat Namibia, but I think Bangladesh plays Nepal in their last game, so hopefully they should get a win there. But we know what Nepal did against South Africa, so...
Nepal, they're a dangerous team, and they get so much support. Their support is, I reckon, it's the loudest in the tournament. Well, I don't think that's a given, that Bangladesh beat Nepal. I think Bangladesh are a decent side, but Nepal have just shown to South Africa overnight that they have the capabilities of causing a shock. So I still think there's a bit of work to do in that group.
Saqib getting runs was actually a good thing for Bangladesh.
Their confidence.
Mustafizur, their bowling have looked good in this tournament. I think Mahmudullah and Saqib going to hold that key for them against Nepal.
Okay, so the update that we have is that the next inspection is going to be at 9 p.m. So there's a lot of time to kill because there is no game for the next 1 hour. So I recommend and highly recommend that you'll go onto the website and watch a very interesting show that Mr. DK has done is #HeyCB. We've seen this before and DK keeps it very entertaining and he gets a lot of your questions are answered. So please do go onto the website and watch the second episode. Also send in your questions because we love more and more questions coming in. Quirkier, funnier ones, nicer. So from one question now to not so funny questions which we have to answer. Let's have a look at the joy factor question of the day. This is his question. Find the missing name. Aaron Finch, Jos Buttler, Lassit Malinga, MS Dhoni, Collingwood, Yunus Khan and Dash. Michael, you always give a knowing as if you have the answer.
I think this is one of the easiest questions.
I think I know this one. I think. Do you know?
Yeah, I think so.
Maybe we'll discuss the answers outside in the green room because looks like Zach and Michael have the answers. If we've got the answers here, I'm sure we've got the answers already written in because they come in very quickly. Like I said, the next inspection is at 9 o'clock. So we're going to go out. We're going to make sure that GK orders us some food. We'll answer the joy factor question. But we'll be coming back when we have an update with the toss and things moving forward. Hopefully, we do see a game today. So that's all for now. But we will join you all very soon.